Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Power Podcast All-Star Live Stream Series. I am your co-host slash moderator, Brother Bedford, and we want to welcome you and thank you over and over again for sharing with us your most valuable resource, your most valuable asset, and that is your time. And we're going to do our best. In fact, I know we're going to deliver tonight with my brother Andy on in terms of reciprocating and giving you value for your time. You're not only going to get value, you're going to get energy, you're going to get motivation, you're going to get stimulation. So I'm extremely excited about tonight because it is just the medicine that we need in this critical hour. So what I need you to do, go ahead and tell us where you're from, your name, where you're from in the comments below right here on George Fraser's page. If you're on YouTube watching this, we need you to go ahead and subscribe to the channel. So hit that subscribe button. And then I also need you to follow George Fraser's fan page. And when you subscribe and when you follow the fan page, you get notified when we have our upcoming podcast. You don't have to worry about not missing anything. You'll get notifications. So make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel over at Fraser Nation. And we want you to go ahead and follow George Fraser's fan page. The other way that you can get notified is go to www.newblackpower.com. Give us your name and email, and then that way I can send you an email to keep you up to date with our upcoming podcast, as well as keep you informed about our previous podcasts. Because a lot of people who have been missing them, and they're surprised when I send them the replays or I point them to the page where they can absorb the previous podcast. We've had the best and brightest of Black America. I mean, we've had Les Brown, Lisa Nichols, Dr. Dennis Kimbrough, you call the roll. We've had them and we haven't slowed down. And tonight we have our brother, Andy Henriquez. The other thing that I want you to do is go ahead and pull out your calendar real quick and just mark down Saturday. A lot of you have been inquiring about the different ways that you can take your knowledge and use this time to write your books and things like this. So we have Sheree Robbins coming on Saturday night to help you with writing your book. So if you got questions, you need some tips, some strategies on how to do that right now, make sure you mark that on your calendar and join us this Saturday at 7 o'clock. The last thing that I need you to do before we get to rocking and rolling with Dr. Fraser and Andy tonight is that I need you to share this page. I need you to go ahead and invite your family and friends. Tell them we got some good news going on over on George Fraser's fan page. We're live and in living color with Dr. George C. Fraser and Andy Henriquez. All right, so go ahead and share it, put it in the groups, put it on your page, and make sure that everyone is tuning in. Now, with that said, here's what I want to say to you. A lot of times we have an excuse of why we can't succeed, why we can't take ourselves to the next level. Most times, historically, we've been an ill-informed people. We haven't had the appropriate information. And so tonight we know that you're going to be informed. We've been working diligently to make sure that you've been getting information that could help you to better your life, better the life of your family, and of course, start and grow and scale your business. We've been doing that part. So information, we want to make sure that you're not lacking in that. We're not going to shortchange you on providing the information. And of course, Dr. Fraser has been at the forefront of providing us information, not just in the arena of networking and effective relationships, but financial literacy and building wealth. I mean, he's just been a wealth of information for myself. And obviously you've heard everyone else who've come on to the program have talked about the way that they've been inspired and even aided by Dr. Fraser on our entrepreneurial journey. So without further delay, the man who's been a great inspiration and a father to many of us in the modern networking movement and building effective relationships, none other than the father of Fraser Nation and the founder of the Power Networking Conference, Dr. George C. Fraser.
Good evening, Brother Bedford. Good to see you.
Good to see you
Good
too,
to hear
Doc.
you as usual. Thank you for that wonderful thought about what it takes to succeed. Very, very important. Hey, listen, I just have to be honest, brothers and sisters, I'm a little bit down. I really am. I mean, I have actually enjoyed the pandemic because of the freedom of thought that has given me to go within myself, for deep introspection, to create and to innovate and to create new ideas and new ways for us to learn. I'm a little bit down because, of course, the incident in Minneapolis, and then the breaking news today that the police officer who killed George Floyd, a guy by the name of Derek Chauvin, is actually a white supremacist. There are pictures of him with "Make White Great Again" cap on, that red cap, not "Make America Great," that looks like that cap, but it says "Make White Great Again." There's pictures of him at 3 or 4 different Donald Trump rallies, on the stage, being greeted and hugged by Donald Trump. These are the kind of people that support him. And it came out that he has killed several people and have gotten away with it. And that's why he thought he could get away with killing a brother in plain sight. And so I'm a little bit depressed, and I can't think of anybody better to have on in this moment than Andy Henriquez. I mean, this brother is a powerhouse. He's a motivator, but he's a great storyteller, and he motivates through his stories, and I love him for that. He's a dynamo. He's one of the top storytellers, I think, in the world. You're going to find that out in the next few minutes. I want to do him right, and I want to give him a proper introduction. He's sitting there with a beautiful smile on his face. I wish I could buy that smile, all teeth, just wonderful. And just his smile will lighten you up and brighten you up. But, and you'll see him in a moment. If you can't see him now, typically these cameras are focused on the person that is talking, which as it should be. So let me give him a proper introduction by trying to do a dramatic read of his extensive, I'm going to truncate it a little bit, bio, but you just got to know a little bit more about Andy, and we'll take a little deeper dive in this bio. Andy helps leaders become influencers, communicators, and help them to increase their bottom line through strategic storytelling. That's a real art. Andy's philosophy is simple. The shortest distance between you and those that you are looking to influence is a well-told story. And that's why Andy's on a mission to teach leaders and change agents how to unlock the power of story. Known as the master storyteller, Andy's keynotes and trainings provide very practical and easy to follow strategies to leverage personal stories to have greater influence and to make more impact. If a high energy, interactive, thought-provoking, strategic storytelling experience is what you're looking for, that's what I'm looking for, then look no further. Andy Henriquez, you notice I rolled the R's, is your guy. He's your guy. Andy's past clients include Office Depot, Accenture, Southern Glacier, Pratt & Whitney, Bacardi, and NSA, NASA, just to name a few. Andy's audience have described their time with him as game-changing, eye-opening, the best we've seen. That's a quote, by the way, and off the chart energy. I've been on the same stage, and I'm just glad I went before Andy. I did not want to have to follow that level of energy. Andy's captivating storytelling keynotes and interactive trainings have a common thread. They empower audiences to tap into the underutilized art of storytelling and help them to increase influence, connection, engagement with storytelling. That's number one. To make their content and ideas more compelling through storytelling. That's number two. To increase sales and conversion through storytelling. That's number three. And number four, use emotion-based storytelling to humanize their organization and brand. And number five, inspire change and action in others through strategic storytelling. Andy is also the author of the life-changing book, Show Up for Your Life, and has been featured in the Huffington Post, Black Enterprise, Entrepreneur, and has made several national television appearances. Now, Andy has a diverse background, and I'm going to close with this paragraph. and experience that give him a special ability to relate to all audiences. Andy was born to Haitian immigrants who came to this country in pursuit of the American dream. With the core values of hard work, discipline, and commitment instilled by his parents. Andy attended Florida State University, graduating summa cum laude in accounting, and as a licensed CPA, so he's no lightweight. Andy worked for the prestigious accounting firm PricewaterhouseCoopers LLP, and after feeling a special calling on his life, Andy left his firm in 2004 to fulfill his destiny as a speaker and a coach. I welcome to our podcast tonight, our all-star podcast and all-star, Andy Henriquez. Andy, let people see that beautiful face.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Thank you. First
How
of
you
all,
doing, my brother?
I am doing fantastic, Dr. George Fraser. You know, I was sitting here and thinking about this. You know, I was trying to think about when I first crossed paths with you. And at the time, I was in the Les Brown Platinum Speaker Program, and Les Brown was coming to speak at FraserNet. It was in Atlanta, Georgia. You had heavy hitters, Les Brown, Lisa Nichols, and somehow Les Brown, maybe it's because you trust him, somehow he convinced you to allow some of his speakers to be showcased. And I could tell you had a level of trust, but you would sit right there in that front row and you'd be like, man, Les, you better not, you know, I love my flock. You better not just let anybody up there.
That's right.
And
we had Miles Monroe with us too on that particular time you were there. Right?
Absolutely.
So you had a master class of speakers being sort of judges, right? Were you nervous? Were you nervous, Andy?
Absolutely, I was nervous. Yeah. You kidding me? Les is right there watching. You got Dr. C. Fraser right there. You got Lisa Nichols in the building. I was absolutely nervous. But what I want to say is this, is that I am forever grateful because, you know, it's people like, you know, Les Brown who are willing to pass the mic, and then people like you who are saying, you know what, I will extend my platform not to just anybody. They better have done the work, right? Because there's something about when you get within your presence, everybody knows you better bring your A game. There's a level of excellence and expectation that is there. And I just really think about just how grateful I am to have that platform. And I think about now as I begin to build my own platform, how much it means when someone takes the time to extend their platform to you. So I just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you, because I know it's not just me. There are so many other speakers, coaches, entrepreneurs that have gone on to do great things that if you go back and you look at their lineage, they really got their start or their opportunity to step foot on the platform at FraserNet, you know, because of the amazing Dr. George C. Fraser. And so I thank you so much for opening that door, for giving us that opportunity, and for continuing to really raise the bar so that all of us would know that, you know, average wasn't going to cut it. We know that for sure when it comes to you. Average is not going to cut it. And so I just want to say thank you. I'm grateful, I'm humbled, I'm honored to be here on the podcast with you.
Well, thanks, Andy. I deeply appreciate that. I said to someone just the other day, because they made a comment, something similar to yours, not exactly, and they said that they wanted to please me, that their fear was that they would not live up to the standard of the importance or magnitude of the platform on which I allowed them. And I smiled and laughed and I said, you know what? I never thought about it that way. But if pleasing me helps people to raise up their game, then I want to be pleased, right? I want to be pleased. I want to be able to say to them, I'm proud of you. And they want me to say to them that I am proud of them, right? So that's not a narcissistic thing or an egotistical thing. It is just doing whatever we can as leaders to help raise the game, raise the standards. Andy, you're going to be talking to us today about cashing in on your story.
Yes.
But I think it's only right that we also get into a little mindset and encouragement, since you are one of the great motivators around, and we're all a little bit depressed right now. Black people are not feeling their best.
Yeah.
And so whatever you nuggets you want to give us, whatever you want to say to us to help us get through this period, we would really appreciate it.
Yeah, yeah. You know, one of the things I would say is, and for those of you that will eventually be watching the replay of this, there's a lot going on right now, right? So right now we're in the midst of the coronavirus, COVID-19. So whether you're watching this in the future, just so I can let you know what time frame we're having this discussion. And not only that, but we're in the middle of Corona-19, but in addition to that, we have people whose businesses are plummeting or they're trying to adjust and pivot. We've got people who've been laid off from their jobs and possibly trying to find a way to really get some firm footing again, trying to figure out what direction they're going to go in. They're in the household with their loved ones, which at first seemed like a great thing, but now they're starting to get on each other's nerves and they're trying to figure like I love y'all, but this is getting a little bit out of control right now, right? And then on top of that, we are in a world that's very divisive right now. In a world where there's a lot of sort of hatred and judgment and, you know, a lot of tension, right? And so I think that now more than ever, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you are working a corporate job, whether you are a stay-at-home mom, I think that now more than ever, you've got to take every thought captive, right? And so there's actually a verse we talk about taking every thought captive, but I want to share something with you because I need you to get this and I want you to remember this, and you'll say that I heard Andy share this on the podcast. And here's what I want to remind you. Just because you have a thought, I know there's a lot going on right now. And the reality of it is you probably have a whole lot of thoughts that are going on through your mind that are probably not serving you. Like we just know this, right? There's been the National Research Foundation that said, listen, the majority of our thoughts, over 70% of them are negative. But this is what I want to tell you. Just because you have a thought, it does not mean that you have to keep the thought. In other words, you can make the decision to boom, hit it back. Now, let me tell you what I mean by that. During the summers, I used to go as a teenager, I used to head out to California to go visit one of my cousins. And at the time, her husband was a tennis player. I mean, this guy was a pretty good tennis player. Me being a teenager, being in the household, he needed somebody to play with. So he'd come home, he'd say, listen, man, grab the tennis racket, come with me, let's go to the tennis court. And so I'd get out there at the tennis court with him. He was so much better than I was, and I was just learning the game. And after a while, all the balls would end up on my side of the court. Now, Dr. Fraser, I'm gonna tell you right now, when I would look at all those balls on my side of the court, I used to get so frustrated. And I would attach a story as I was looking at those balls, like, man, I'm not good. He's so much better than I am. And he could sense my frustration. Like I was borderline ready to like leave, to give up. And then he told me, come here. He said, come here. And I walked up to the net and he said, listen, man, he said, I want you to take a deep breath. And he said, all I want you to do is every time the ball comes on your side of the court, I want you to boom, hit it back. He said, listen, just calm down and just focus on every time the ball comes on your side of the court, boom, hit it back. Now, here's what I want to tell you. I know that there's a lot going on in your mind right now. I know that there's a lot of negative thoughts going on with the economy, in your business, the things, the current events, what we're seeing happening right now with George Floyd. There are a lot of things that are penetrating your mind. But what I want to remind you is that as those negative thoughts are coming your way, as those balls are landing on your side of the court, just because you have a thought doesn't mean that you have to keep the thought. You can make the decision to boom, hit it back. And so next time you have one of those thoughts that's telling you, I can't do it right now, I'm not going to succeed in my business, I'm going to have to pivot, like I don't know where I'm going to get my income from, I'm going to have to let go of employees, I don't know if I could recreate myself, I don't know if I could pivot, all these things that are going on through your mind, or I'm just so frustrated, what kind of world are we living in? These thoughts, as they're stacking up, I want to remind you, just because you have a thought doesn't mean that you have to keep the thought. You can make a decision at any moment to boom, hit it back. So now, every time those thoughts come up, I want you to remember that you're on this podcast. And as those thoughts are coming in, I want you to examine every thought and just make a decision. Is this thought going to help me to accomplish my goals and my dreams? Is this thought depleting my energy or adding energy? And if it's not serving you, if it's depleting your energy, I want you to do the one thing that is across the board, one of the number one things that influencers do, amazing folks do. They also have negative thoughts, but they examine those thoughts and then they, boom, hit it back. So that's something I want to share with you. And I hope that you take that to mind. There's one more thing that I do want to share with you. I believe that now more than ever, that we need to reconsider everything. And this is what I mean by reconsider everything. You need to be asking yourself, you know, especially if right now you're being challenged in your business, you're being challenged in your career, you're being challenged in your household, you're being challenged in any area in your life, you need to reconsider for a moment, like, why are you doing this? In other words, I want you to figure out right now, what's your green couch? Now, Dr. Fraser, you might be sitting over there thinking right now, where's Andy going with this? What's your green couch? Brother Bedford, you might be saying, what is Andy talking about? You might be listening to me right now and say, what's your green couch? Matter of fact, do me a favor right now, in the comment section, put green couch, because I'm gonna tell you what the green couch is. So one of my good buddies, one of my very good buddies, played in the NFL for 8 years, Dr. Fraser. He played in the NFL for 8 years. I never thought much of it because his NFL career was before he and I became very good friends. Until one day I'm sitting down in front of the television and then I end up seeing the statistic, Dr. Fraser, and here's what they said. They said that less than 1% of the high school football players, the collegiate football players that have a desire to make it to the NFL, less than 1% make it to the NFL. Now, all of a sudden, I started to look at my friend a little differently because I'm starting to think to myself, like, how did he become part of the 1%? Now, I just want you to think about 1% of anything. Think about being 1% in your industry, being in the top 1% in your business, being in the top 1% in your company. Being 1% anything is really, really impressive. So Dr. Fraser, my friend, you know, he's a little bigger than me, so I didn't want to upset him, right? So the next time I saw him, I went up to him and I said, look, man, hey, I don't want to disrespect you, my friend, but I got to ask you a question. I said, how did you make it to the NFL? I mean, you're not the strongest guy I know. You're not the fastest guy I know. Like, how did you do it? And he was like, oh, you really want to know? And I was like, yeah, I'm not trying to offend you. He's like, oh, you really want? I said, yes. So he came by my house, Dr. Fraser, and then he picked me up and he drove me to a neighborhood in Hollywood, Florida, known as Carver Ranches. And then he drove around this block and he showed me this fourplex building. And then he pointed at one of the units. He said, you see that unit over there? I said, yeah, I see it. He said, that unit right there, he said, I used to live in that unit over there with my mom and my 3 brothers. He said, but that unit, it was really small, man. He said, it was just over about 600 square feet. It had 2 bedrooms. He said, me and my brother Mike, we shared a room. He said, my brother Ernest and Stanley shared another room. And he said, Andy, and he got emotional. He said, man, for 18 years, my brother, I watched my mom make the ultimate sacrifice and she slept on the same green couch in the living room. He said, man, my mom used to sleep on that couch so often and so long, man. He said that the couch started to cave in. He said, me and my brother, we used to run to the local grocery store and we would get cardboard boxes and we would bring the cardboard boxes. We would put it up underneath the couch so we can prop it up. And he said, I watched my mom year after year complaining about her back hurting. Year after year, I watched my mom's legs hang off of the couch because the couch wasn't even long enough. And he said, Andy, man, I'm going to tell you something. He said, one night I got up. And he said, I was going to the kitchen. He said, we ain't have nothing to eat, man. I was just going to the kitchen to go in there. And he said, I walked out and I saw my mom sleeping on the couch. And I could tell that she was in a lot of discomfort and pain. And he said, Andy, I stood over my mom. And he said, I just thought to myself, one day, I'll get my mom off this couch. He said, now I'm gonna tell you something, bro. He said, I didn't know how I was gonna do it. When I said I'm gonna get my mom off that couch, dude, he said, I did not know how I was going to do it, but I said that I'm gonna get my mom off the couch. And he said, at that time, there wasn't businessmen in my neighborhood, my brother. There wasn't these successful corporate guys. At that time, the only couple guys I knew that made it out the neighborhood, they played football. And he said, Andy, I was playing football at the time. And he said, at that moment, everything changed. He said, I would show up 2 hours early so I could go ahead and get some extra reps in. He said, when I got in the game and I was frustrated and I was tired, he said, I would stay in the game and keep practicing, keep working hard. He said, I made the commitment to outwork everybody. When practice ended, I would stay an additional 2 hours and keep putting in reps, keep making things happen. And he said, man, that work ethic, that commitment got me a scholarship to the University of Florida. He said, now I wish I could tell you everything was good after that. He said, nah, man. He said, when I got there's a gentleman by the name of Emmitt Smith. You may have heard of him. He said, I was sitting on the bench. I was waiting for my time. I was waiting for my opportunity. He said, man, there were times I was sitting there. I said, did I make the right decision by coming to this school? He was saying, I wonder if I'm going to ever get my play time. He said, but every time I thought about giving up, I kept thinking about, I got my mom sleeping on that green couch. And he said, finally, his opportunity came. They called him into the game. The guy in front of him got hurt. And he said, man, Andy, when they called me, they had no idea, man. They thought I was just stepping foot on that football field, but they had no idea that back in Carver Ranches, that in our unit back at home, I had a mama sleeping on that couch. My friend's name is Eric Rett. He would go on to break every rushing record at the University of Florida. And in 1994, he was a second-round draft pick. And the first thing he did, Dr. Fraser, with that signing bonus was drive down to Plantation, Florida. He bought his mom, who was in Carver Ranches in that little fourplex, a 4,000 square foot home, 3-car garage, and most importantly, a big king-size bed. And he got his mom off that couch. And so here's what I say to you right now, Fraser Nation, you got to find your green couch. You got to find the thing that's going to make it worth it for you, so that you look at this coronavirus, is this just a temporary setback? Because the thing that you're going after, it is so big, it is so important to you that this means nothing. It's just a temporary setback. And so I know right now, listen, I'm telling you, I know, I consider myself a half full kind of guy, a motivated kind of guy. Dr. Fraser and I, I was talking to Dr. Fraser earlier. He said, listen, man, Andy, I've been enjoying this thing. I've been enjoying this time off. I'm constantly running. But you know what? I'm still feeling a little down right now in the midst of everything that's happening. And so I understand that even if you're a positive person, I understand that even if you're a glass half full kind of person, that right now your mind may waver. It happens to the best of us. But I want to just remind you 2 things. Number one, just because you have a thought doesn't mean that you have to keep the thought. You can, boom, hit it back. You have that right. You don't have to hold on to that thought. The scripture talks about you take every thought captive, every thought. Any thought that doesn't serve you, boom, hit it back. Then the other thing is, if you're trying to figure out how to get through this, let me tell you, that positive thinking, affirmation, no, you better find a compelling reason. Find your green couch so that when things come up, you're saying, listen, my reasons are so big, this can't stop me. It's an inconvenience. I would rather not be in the middle of this, but my reasons are so big that I'm going to push forward. So discover and figure out what your green couch is. And those are the things that I would tell you, that those are the things that I revisit during this season to remember when I have those thoughts, and I have them too, is to boom, hit it back. And the second thing is when I find myself getting a little, disoriented and trying to figure out, I remind myself of what my green couch is so that I'm willing to pay the price and be able to make this thing happen. And I'm inviting you to do the same. If you got some value from that, do me a favor right now in the comment section, say that was for me. That was for me. Dr. Fraser, we had to give it to him because I know they needed that.
That was awesome. I wish we had an applause button, right? We would be hitting the applause button. We're going to make sure we're going further. We're going to have an applause button so that we can have a big crowd applaud that. Well, that was certainly a mic drop moment. That is. And we rank our speakers by the number of mic drops they get during their hour. That was huge, Andy. This may be the first time that some people may be meeting you, and I want you to tell them a little bit about your story.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Your story. I've never heard a person tell the story of another person, a good friend, as well as you told that story. It was like it was you, right? Right. It was so full of emotion and full of sincerity and full of energy. That was powerful. But let's tell them a little about your story.
Yeah, yeah. And so like Dr. George Fraser read at the very beginning, you know, my parents are originally from the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. My parents came from Haiti. And one of the things they told me, Dr. Fraser, they said, listen, young man, the key to success in this country, you got to go to school, get a good education, and get a good job, right? So I followed the script. I went to school at Florida State University. I don't know if there's any Knowles watching this. If so, go Knowles. I got my undergraduate degree in accounting. I actually graduated summa cum laude, which probably means I spent a little too much time studying when I probably should have been hanging out with my fraternity brothers. Kappa Alpha Psi, shout out real quick, right? Mm-hmm. And then I ended up staying and getting my master's degree in corporate accounting. And while I was in the master's program, a group of us, we were insane. We said, hey, in the middle of us getting our master's, let's go ahead and study for the CPA exam. And so I studied for the CPA exam, took the CPA exam, and actually passed the CPA exam. And I was so grateful for that. And I ended up landing a job, one of the big 4 public accounting firms, a company by the name of PricewaterhouseCoopers. Now, here's what the crazy thing is. Here I am, I followed the script, all right? Undergraduate degree, summa cum laude, master's, corporate accounting, CPA license, followed the script. And now here I am, I'm working with this amazing company. I got every reason to do well, but yet and still, I feel as if my life is following a basic routine. And let me tell you what I mean by that. I feel like I'm waking up every day to the sound of an alarm clock. I'm jumping out of my bed. I'm getting into my car. I'm fighting traffic to get to a place in which I knew that something inside of me was saying, there's gotta be more than this. Now, for those of you tuning in right now, I don't care if it was a career, a relationship, a set of circumstances. How many of you have ever been at a place in your life where you said to yourself, there has got to be more than this? Do me a favor in the chat, put me too, me too, me too, like if you've ever been there. And so Dr. Fraser, for a year and a half, I thought about taking a chance on myself. For a year and a half, I thought about becoming an entrepreneur. I thought about becoming a speaker. And Dr. Fraser, this is what I did for a year and a half. I would talk myself into it and then talk myself right back out of it, right? And so I'd be like, come on, brother, you can be an entrepreneur.
You hit it back.
Yeah, I hit it back, right? Every time I thought I was gonna do it, Brother Bedford, I'd be like, come on, brother, you could do it. You're gonna become an entrepreneur. You're gonna become this speaker. You're gonna become this coach. And then on the other hand, I'd be like, yeah, but you did spend a lot of time getting your undergraduate degree. Man, you did do a lot of studying to get your master's. Man, you know how hard you studied for that CPA exam? And your mom, my mom's got that accent, Dr. Fraser, she's always telling folks, oh, my son, he's the CPA. He worked for the big company, PricewaterhouseCoopers, you know? So my mom was so proud, Dr. Fraser. So it was like so hard for me to decide to take that chance. And then after a year and a half, it was December of 2004 that became my defining moment. Kevin Costner, in one of his movies called Tin Cup, Dr. Fraser, here's what he said. He said, when the defining moment comes, either you define the moment or the moment defines you. And so either you define the moment, you decide that you're going to stretch, you're going to grow. I believe that right now we're in the middle of a defining moment, right? Mm-hmm. And so during this moment, you got to decide whether you are going to put your life on pause or whether or not you're going to pivot. You got to decide whether or not you're going to skill up and make some things happen, which is why, as you're listening right now, you absolutely have to make sure you're at PNC 2020, because this is about to be the time of great separation. It's going to be the difference of what you're doing during this particular season. And so this is a defining moment. So for me, that was a defining moment. I had to make a decision whether I was going to surrender to my fears or if I was going to start going after my goals and my dreams and so forth. And that's when I finally built the courage. And I walked into the office of HR. Her name was Tammy Klein. And I turned in that letter of resignation. And that's when the journey began. And that's when I went all in with going after my goals and my dreams, started going to seminars and workshops, attending things like Fraser Net, which is now PNC 2020, so I could get in front of the most brilliant minds, so I could get in front of the best speakers, so I could get in front of amazing people that would fill my cup and give me the skills, the strategies, and the mindset so that I can plunge forward and go after my goals and my dreams. And since that time, I'm so grateful to have made that decision. It's been quite a journey. But today, as Dr. Fraser was saying, I have clients like Bacardi, Office Depot, Accenture, Pratt & Whitney, NASA. You know, I've been in Huffington Post, Black Enterprise. And I don't share any of those things to really impress you, but just to remind you, you're looking at a guy who's a former CPA. CPAs aren't known for being great storytellers, okay? They're known for being good number crunchers. So I share that with you because I want you to understand that ability to communicate, the ability to be able to share and tell stories, which we're going to be pivoting to next, is I want you to know that is a learnable skill, right? But you just have to take the time to get in the right places so that you can actually learn those skills. And that happens to be the thing that I'm going to be talking about when you come out and join us at PNC 2020. If you haven't already done so, you better make sure that you get the link, you get your ticket, you secure your spot, right? I don't know what you're waiting for if you haven't already done that. But when you're there, not only will you be hearing from me on really how to cash in on your stories, but other amazing, phenomenal speakers and thought leaders, and be able to get within a community of individuals that have made a decision right now that during this season, that instead of just pausing, that they're going to pivot, that during this season, as opposed to just trying to survive, that they're actually going to thrive. And so for me, everything changed when I decided to take a chance on myself and I decided to do the work. And make no mistake about it, I have had to put in the work. It is a journey, and I am still on that journey. I'm an eternal student, which is why I'm always trying to seek and find opportunities to get in front of the greats like Dr. George Fraser and like all of the amazing folks that he brings in, like the Les Browns, the Lisa Nichols, the Della Toros, and all of the amazing folks that come in, the Dr. Willie Jollies. I mean, we could go on and on and on and on, you know, of all the individuals that are able to equip you, motivate you, inspire you, and most importantly, give you the skills so that you can start positioning yourself to the next level.
Yeah. Andy, that it's amazing. You went from a CPA, one of the high professions. It's right up there with medicine, law, right? Yeah. It's the epitome of accounting, a CPA. Yeah. And you went to a motivational speaker. I mean, you're talking about something that is diametrically opposed, but what I know exists within the disciplines that you have to learn to pass that awesome exam and to practice your CPA profession. As you transition, there must have been some transferable skills. What were the transferable skills from a CPA to a motivational speaker? What were those skills?
Yeah, so I tell you this. So what's interesting is there are some people who can display a skill, but they're not the best at being able to teach someone else on how to possess that skill. So one of the things that I'm so grateful for is having that sort of accounting analytical mind caused me to study at a level that most other people don't study at. And that's just the way that I am built, right? You know, highly analytical and also really big on preparation and going deep. And the beautiful thing is, once I decided to make the pivot and really got into speaking and then making the decision that I was going to niche down and specifically to help people to learn how to be able to construct and develop stories, the unique thing that was transferable, Dr. Fraser, was that analytical part of my brain actually would take stories apart and then figure out how do you actually construct and put a story together. So what appeared like magic to everybody else, and everybody else is just being sort of like entertained by the skill set, my brain was sort of saying, okay, how is he doing this? Or how is she doing this? Okay, I got it. So they've got a certain structure on this story. Okay, they're using bridges. There's certain places that they're using to be able to enroll and connect the audience. Oh, I got it. There's a universal theme in the story. And so that way they can get other people, even if they don't have a similar experience, they can connect to the theme. Got it. I can get them. So what happened is that analytical part of my brain which is what really has allowed me, as many people would say, to be a master storyteller. But it's one thing to be able to be a great storyteller, but the thing that I'm most proud of is my ability to take somebody that no matter where skill level they're at or what kind of storyteller they believe that they are, everything from the attorney to the lawyer to the doctor to the coach to the speaker, to be able to transfer that skill set, because they're always trying to figure out, oh yeah, right, Andy, you're going to be able to tell me how to tell my story. Seriously, man. And that analytical process, I've developed a system and a process to be able to construct stories and to very quickly be able to identify what shouldn't be in the story, what needs to be in the story, where do things go to be able to construct a story, and how to be able to drive and deliver the point. And I so analyze it that now it is so overly simplified that many of my students, they're always like baffled. They'll just tell a story and I'll listen and then I redo their story and they'll be like, what? How did he do that? And the reason why is just, it's that analytical mind, and then the repetition, the reps over the years of just looking at stories, deconstructing stories, telling stories, looking at stories, deconstructing stories, and telling stories. And one of the things that I want to make sure that we share tonight is that one of the things that we talked about was that we want to show people how not to just tell stories, right? And I want to make sure that you guys understand that there's a clear distinction. The way that you tell your stories to your friends and your family members, that is not what we are talking about tonight. I want to make sure you understand that. Let me clarify something for you. Your friends, your family members, they love you. Do you get that? Your friends and family members, they love you, so they extend something called grace. Matter of fact, you also extend grace to your family members. Let me tell you what I'm talking about. You've been on the phone before with a friend or a family member. On the phone, they called you up and they started telling you a long-winded story. And then this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened. And because you love them, you went ahead and put the phone on speaker. And in the meantime, you're still doing something else. You're washing the dishes, you're getting your clothes ready for the next day. And as they're talking, you're like, uh-huh. Yeah. They're like, you listening? Yeah, I'm listening. Uh-huh. Yeah, I'm listening. You listening? Yeah. Uh-huh. Keep going. And you let your friend keep going, or the family member. Now, listen, if you met, because I know who is in the Fraser Nation, okay? If that person met you in the business world, you wouldn't have it. You wouldn't even give that person 2 minutes. Do you hear me? Because you value your time so much. But you extend grace to your friends and your family members. Now, let me tell you where that becomes a problem. You start thinking that it's okay for you to tell stories like that when it is time for you to conduct business. And so now you're sitting across from a prospect. Now you're sitting across from an audience. Now you have an opportunity to be able to enroll and engage people, and you're still telling the story the way that you tell it to friends and family members, which is typically in chronological order, chronological sequence, saying, and this happened, and this happened, and this happened. And so what happens is strangers, prospects, cold market, they're going to be with you for the first couple seconds. They may even give you all of 45 seconds to a minute. After that, they're making a determination. Am I going to keep listening, or am I going to go ahead and start looking on my cell phone? Am I going to keep listening, or am I going to start jotting down some notes? We've all been at conferences, right? When you saw someone speaking, they had your attention, someone else, you start texting, you start taking notes on something else, you start looking around the room and so forth. They've lost you. And so what we need to learn to do as entrepreneurs, as influencers, as professionals, is learning how to use stories strategically as a tool so that we can be able to have more influence, and so that we can attract more opportunities, and so that we get better at enrollment. I'm telling you right now, especially in this environment, with the fact that many of us are not able to meet in person, just you flipping open your laptop and start talking to the camera is not necessarily going to convert. You're not necessarily going to be able to hold people. You have to be able to get attention, keep attention, and then be able to convert them, right? So simply looking at camera and just start talking to people and not knowing how to effectively enroll, not knowing how to use stories, not knowing how to properly engage, not knowing how to convert, that is hurting you. And there's a prime opportunity. The average people on Zoom per day was 10 million people prior to what we're currently experiencing right now. The average number of people on Zoom is 200 million people. Facebook Lives have increased by 50%. Instagram Lives has increased by 50%. That means that now you have opportunity to speak to more people, but it also means that there are more people trying to talk to those people, right? Which means that you got to be able to separate yourself. And so you got to be able to connect and hold people at an entirely different level. So that's why, Dr. Fraser, I want to make sure that before our time is up, that I at least let them know the 5 stories that they got to develop so that they can be able to bring in an additional 6 figures into their business, and so that they can leverage those stories so that ultimately they have more conversion.
Well, why don't we do that right now? Right.
Let's
Because
do it.
It's already 7:45. I mean, the time just blows by when you're thoroughly engaged by
blows
a person.
by.
So why don't you get into the 5 now?
So I'll do it right now. So I'm going to break down.
This helps us to understand why strategic storytelling is so important in those 5 stories that we need. Why don't you do that?
Exactly. So here's what I want you to do right now. If you're a note taker, right? My friend Trevor Ott said the note takers are money makers. So go ahead and get a piece of paper, write the word solve going down vertically on a piece of paper. That's like this, not like that. That's horizontal, that's vertical. Write the word solve going down a piece of paper, SOLVE, right? Now, why am I using the word solve? The reason why I'm using the word solve is because I believe that these stories solve most of the challenges that entrepreneurs face when it comes to them being able to get engagement, when it comes to them being able to connect with people, when it comes to them being able to actually convert people. The first type of story that you need is the S. We refer to that as a signature story. I want you to write that down. That is called a signature story. Every major influencer in every category, everything from a pastor to a television personality to people who are politicians, every major influencer has what we refer to as a signature story. I'm a disciple of Les Brown, so I'm going to go ahead and pick on Les Brown for a moment. So Les Brown has been my mentor for over a decade. And if you've ever heard of Les Brown, at some point you should have heard his signature story. You should have heard at some point he talks about being born in an abandoned building down in Miami, Florida, being labeled educably mentally retarded. You probably heard of Lisa Nichols, right? That would be the story. If you think about Lisa Nichols, it'll be the story of her talking about going to the ATM machine, not having enough money to be able to get the money out of the ATM machine, having to get a cloth and wipe it around her son and saying, no matter what, right? Joel Osteen, pastor, right? His signature story would be at one point he was the cameraman, and then, at one point his father passed away. He went from being the cameraman. What's a signature story? A signature story is nothing more than a story that you leverage so that you can be able to attract your ideal customer and client, or get your ideal customer and client to feel a connection with you. Now, why do we want to do that? Well, the reason why we want to do that is because we know this. We've heard this over and over again. People love to do business with people that they know, like, and trust. So you've got to connect before you sell. We're in an environment where people are constantly trying to sell prior to making any level of connection. So the reason why we always start off with sharing some form of our story is so that we can build some level of connection between us, the prospects, and the audience. Why? Because that is going to set up everything else that we're looking to do as the influencer, as the entrepreneur, as the speaker, as the coach, as the entrepreneur, period. You've got to make sure that you connect first through the signature story. That means every great salesperson, every great orator, when they get in front of a cold audience, they're going to find a way to put a piece of their story so that they can build that connection. That's what the signature story is. Now, the next type of story that you need is what we refer to as an offer story. That's what the O is, the offer story. Listen, if you are an entrepreneur, if you're a speaker, if you're a coach, you better be making offers. You better have something that you are trying to sell, all right? There's got to be something that you're selling to make some type of an economical exchange, right? Now, here's what I want you to understand. Most of us, when it is time to make that offer, we get caught up with trying to describe our product and our service. So the best analogy would perhaps be that we are actually trying to sell the plane, right, as opposed to selling the destination. When you get on an aircraft, you don't really care about what the thread count is on that aircraft's carpet. You don't really care about what the material, the seats are that you're sitting in. And unless you really, really care about airplanes, you probably don't even care about what kind of engine it is, the wingspan and all that stuff. The only thing you really care about is getting to your destination. Here's where we drop the ball oftentimes as entrepreneurs and influencers. We're trying to sell something and we start trying to sell the airplane. So if you're a coach, you're like, we're going to be doing this many phone calls. You're going to get my workbook. It comes with 6 modules. And so you're sharing that with people, but that's not really the reason why they're buying. Do you get that? And so what happens to so many of us, we get so caught up with selling the airplane, we forget to sell the destination. An offer story is a story that you share that allows your prospect and your client to see the value of your product and your service, to see the destination, so that when it is time for them to make a decision, they don't hit you with, oh, let me think about it. Oh, let me get back to you. Oh, that's really interesting. Thank you. I'll get back to you. And the reason why they normally say that, it means that you didn't do a good enough job of getting them to see the value. And oh, by the way, please don't let yourself off the hook by saying, oh, they don't have the money. Trust and believe. They may not have bought what you offered, but if you had an ability to follow them, I guarantee you that money still found a way to circulate. They just didn't buy what you were offering. So how do you stack the odds in your favor? You develop an offer story. It's simply a story that allows you to get them to see the value of your product and service, or it creates a sense of urgency so that they'll make the decision on the spot, as opposed to saying, I'll get back to you later. That's what an offer story is. A lot of times when I'm standing in the front of the room and I'm about to make an offer and I'm asking people to enroll in coaching, I share a story about when I was going to enroll in coaching, how I was afraid of the dollar amount, how I was trying to avoid making a decision, and how I finally overcame that and the results that produced. What am I doing? I'm forward pacing. I'm mirroring what I know they're experiencing. I know they're going to be fearful. I know they're going to start making excuses. I know that they're going to be second guessing. So I share my story so that they could see that I was exactly where they were, but then I help them to see how it paid off for me and plant the seed that, hey, perhaps this might pay off for you, which moves them towards the decision. We call that an offer story. The third type of story, the L, is what we refer to as a landing story. Landing story, landing story. You guys put that in the chat right now. L, landing story, landing story. Now, what is a landing story? Every single one of us as influencers, you should have content, things that you share with people, right? But here's what I want you to realize. At one point, there used to be an expression that said content is king. The reason why is it took a lot of years for you to accumulate knowledge, and also you did research, and what made you special was that you had knowledge that no one else had. Well, can I share something with you real quick? If content is king, Google killed the king. I want y'all to write that down. If content is king, Google killed the king. Do you get that? Listen, you can take my topic, you can take your topic, you can take anybody's area of expertise, go into Google, put it, you will find more information than you could process in decades. Do you get that, right? So it's no longer your content that separates you. So what makes you unique? It's when you take your content and then you put it within the context of an actual story. Once you put it in the story, everything changes. Dr. Fraser, I think I remember the time when you were sharing the story about that expensive jacket that you got. Remember when you shared that, right? So even though someone may be making a similar point, they don't have that story, Dr. Fraser. You follow me? So that story is what makes it unique. But what are the other benefits? When you put it within the context, there's also studies have found that it makes it 20 times. Jerome Bruner, who's a cognitive psychologist, one of the most quoted ones, when you put it within the context of a story, when you put it within the context, it becomes 22 times more memorable. Listen, if they can't remember you, they can't buy from you. If they can't remember you, they won't refer you. And so we want to become masterful at sharing things that is not just data in their brain, but putting it in a story so that even when we leave, they remember stuff like, boom, hit it back. They remember stuff like, the green couch, right? You may not remember the solve formula, but you will remember that green couch story. You will remember, boom, hit it back. It's the way your brain is programmed. We call that a landing story, all right? Landing story. The V, y'all ready for the B? Hey, put it right now in the chat. I'm ready, I'm ready, I'm ready, I'm ready, I'm ready. Say I'm ready, I'm ready. Right there, put it in the chat, right? So the V is what we refer to as a value proposition story. Value proposition story. You say, well, Andy, what's a value proposition story? A value proposition story is a story that you share early in your presentation. And keep in mind, when I say presentation, this means either in front of an audience or even one-on-one, to get whoever you're speaking to buy into your big idea. So let me tell you what I mean by that. A value proposition story is a story that you share so that you can get your prospect, your audience, to see the value of what you offer. So in other words, if you were a realtor, a value proposition story would just be a story that you share to get them to realize the value of using a realtor as opposed to going for sale by owner. So for me, when I'm delivering a keynote specifically on storytelling, because that's typically what my keynotes are going to be on, I open up with a story about me getting my very first vehicle, right? And so I talk about how I got my first car. I wanted to drive my first car really, really bad. And my mom wouldn't let me drive the car until I first got a job and I'd be able to pay for the insurance. And then I talk about in the story, I'm not going to give it away, how I talk about in the story, how I end up sharing a story, and that story allowed me to finally be able to influence the decision maker. Now, the reason why I share that story is so that when my audience is sitting there early in my presentation, they're like, oh my gosh, he's so right. Stories can influence people. Stories can separate you from the competition. You know what? On second hand, now that I think about it, stories are great. If I get them to buy in that stories are great tools, as I continue to teach them, they're going to follow along. Let me tell you the mistake that many of us make. You're going into what you have to offer and you don't get the buy-in early enough. So you have 45 minutes to speak, 30 minutes to speak, 20 minutes to speak. You're well into your presentation and the person is just now starting to buy in that, you know what, maybe I do need insurance. Maybe I should get a coach. By that time, you got 10 minutes left in your presentation and it's too late because 20 minutes before that, they were still trying to figure out if they're going to buy into what you have to share. So if you put a value proposition story, you get them to buy in early. If you get someone to buy in early, that means they're with you, not just towards the tail end of your presentation, they're with you the whole time. That's what we call a value proposition story. It sets everything up. You better get yourself a value proposition story. And the final story, the E, you guys ready? You guys put in the chat, I'm ready. Put in the chat, I'm ready, right? So the final story is what we refer to as an expert story. Now, I want you to understand something. This is what an expert story is. Most of us, when we're trying to position ourselves as the expert, we are relying on our bio. Now, Dr. Fraser was so kind to take the time to read my bio. Now, but I will tell you this, that unfortunately, most people don't really care about your bio. So if I was coming to the stage and Dr. Fraser was reading my bio, in that moment, we could all stop and pause and look around the room and see how many people are really paying attention. You may hear something that grabs your attention like, oh, he's a CPA, my father's a CPA. Or he went to Florida State, oh yeah, go Noles. But outside of that, it's like, okay, cool. It sounds like the guy's done some stuff, right? So no one really truly cares about your bio. So we lean too heavily on our bio. So although someone may read your bio, that does not relieve you of taking the time to share your story. So you notice Dr. Fraser, he read my bio, but he still took the time to say, you know what, Andy, there's some people who don't know you. Tell them a little bit about your story. Most of you, when you started to build the connection point with me, was when I took the time to tell my story. Was when I started talking about, you know, I followed the script, I did everything. And this was the moment that I got the total buy-in. When I said, and I got to the point where I said, there's gotta be more than this. Because guess what? Every single one of us has been at a place in our life where we said, there's gotta be more than this. So An expert story is nothing more than a story that you share that the audience comes to the conclusion themselves that you are the expert rather than you telling them that you're the expert. Which one do you think is more effective? You telling someone that you're an expert, or they coming to the conclusion themselves that you are the expert? We know the answer to that all day long. It is way better if they make the decision that you are the expert rather than you telling them that you're the expert. Stop telling people that you're the expert and display your expertise and use a story to display your expertise. It is going to completely change your level of enrollment and your engagement. Those are the 5 stories that you need to develop when you come to PNC 2020 and you get the opportunity to join me in my session, we go jump in to the #1 money maker in that, which is that signature story. You got to build out all 5. But I tell you, if you said, Andy, I got to build out all 5, but which one do I start with? I'm telling you right now, I started off with that signature story. One story about my mom. And I learned how to tell that story. And I'm not going to share it right now, but you can put Andy Henriquez Goldcast if you haven't seen it. It's approaching 4 million views. I started off with one story, Dr. Fraser, and I would tell that story over and over again. I put that story on a CD. I was selling that story for $20, Brother Bedford. I was selling that CD for $20. I ordered them. I was selling CDs. When I sold my first 1,000 CDs, I thought I was the man. I made $20,000 selling CDs. And I got really good at sharing that story. And then I started to create a little bit of a following. Then I took that story and I put it in a book. I called Les Brown. Les Brown wrote the foreword. Wrote that story, put it in a book, got people like Office Depot to buy 600 copies, Bacardi to buy 400 copies. Then I learned how to put that story with a couple other stories. Started getting paid for keynotes, $500, $1,000, $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, $25,000 with the same story. Until this day, guess what? People find that Goldcast videos like, what an amazing story. I've been telling that story for 10 years. So if you ask me, how often should you tell that story? I'm gonna tell you over and over and over again. That Goldcast video has done nothing but validated what I've been preaching for the past 10 years, which is you better learn how to tell a story. And when you know how to tell the story, you better tell that thing over and over and over again. And one of the things I always say, Dr. Fraser, is, are you okay with telling a story over and over and over again if you will also get paid when? Over and over and over again. You better learn how to cash in on that story, baby.
That's right. Amen. Oh, wow. All right. So now we're going to ask you to tell us the story. Why is it important for people to attend the Power Networking Conference, the PNC conference? Tell our story, and then I'll make an offer that they can't refuse.
Absolutely. So I'm going to tell you right now. So during this particular season, I want you all to understand there was already a great divide between the have and the have-nots. I want to make you understand that COVID and what we're experiencing right now, that divide is only going to get bigger and bigger. And so if you don't want to get left behind, this is the time that you need to not be laying dormant, but rather this is the time that you need to, what we like to refer to as skill up. You need to increase your capacity. I heard Dr. C. Fraser say before that there's not a lack of opportunity, rather there's a lack of capacity. And the way that you increase your capacity is by putting yourself in the presence of other people who have accomplished some things that perhaps that you haven't, that have the expertise that you do not have, and to also make sure that you're putting yourself within the presence of other people that help you to increase your personal identity level. And so I want you to understand carefully, listen to me. This is not the time to start taking it easy. This is not the time to start relaxing. This is not the time to start buying into, oh, I'll just do that next year. Like I've been watching people, they're like dismissing 2020. Like, what are you talking about? There's still so much left in 2020. And what appeared to be constraints are really hidden opportunities. You got to find the gold in the chaos, and the way that you're going to do that, listen carefully, is by making sure that you put yourself in environments where you are going to learn, you're going to stretch, and you're going to grow. And that's why I'm telling you that there is no better place that you need to be as we move forward this year and we get closer to October. There's no better place that you need to be than at PNC 2020. And me knowing Dr. C. Fraser, even though he doesn't have to do this, I know that he's going to go ahead and make you an offer you can't refuse. But I want you to also understand this. When an opportunity presents itself, you got to make sure that you take advantage of that opportunity before that opportunity goes away. But not only that, it tells you everything that you need to know about yourself. There's something called the Law of Diminishing Intent. I'm going to stop right after I tell you this. If you intend to do something and you don't do it, the longer that you take to do it, the greater the likelihood that you won't do it. So if you're saying to yourself, you know what, I've been tuning in on the podcast. I've been watching Dr. George C. Fraser talk to some other folks. And yeah, I'm going to go to the PNC 2020 conference. I'm going to do it. I want to make you understand is The more times you say you're going to do it and you don't click the button, open up the web page, get your credit card, and buy your seat so that you're actually committed, the greater the likelihood you're not going to do it. So I am pleading with you that if you want to create a shift, if you don't want to get left behind, that you want to take immediate action, not next week, not tomorrow, like the moment that Dr. Fraser tells you how you can do this, get your seat. And when you do, I can't wait to see you there.
Wow. You know, he tells the Power Networking conference story, and I've been doing this for 19 years, right? 19 years. We sell it out every year. But I just love the way you frame that story. It is you told it really like only Andy Henriquez could tell it. Now you can teach this stuff. See, not only can you tell a great story, you can teach people how to tell a great story. You know, the great example I use all the time around doing but not being able to teach is Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan, the greatest basketball player to have ever played the game, right? Mm-hmm. But he would fire himself as a coach on a team that he owned because he couldn't teach the game, right? But Phil Jackson, who was a pretty good player, but not near Michael Jordan, right, has 11 rings for coaching. Right? So because you can do it doesn't mean that you can teach it, right? Yeah. Andy Henriquez can teach it. He'll be at the Power Networking Conference. He is doing a Power Talk, which is our version of a TED Talk. So only the best and brightest get those season spots. And he will be doing a workshop. So you can get to meet him up close and personal. You want to meet this brother. He comes to the conference. He stays at the conference. He loves on you. You can, I guess with COVID-19, I don't know what's going to happen because we have a sort of a lovey-feely kind of thing we do at our conference at the end of the conference. Well, we might have to adjust that a little bit this year, but be there October 14th through the 17th in Houston, Texas at the Hilton of America. So let me make you an offer. It's good for the first 5 people that raise their hand and say yes, because this is a crazy offer. And so I have been told I have to limit the offer when we do it on the podcast. Well, one adult registration for the conference, if you go to the website, powernetworkingconference.com, is $1,495, $1,500, one adult. We encourage you to bring a young person 17 to 25. We should not be conferencing, sitting at the feet of masters like Andy and not coaching our children and exposing them to this Black excellence, right? Because we're all about Black excellence. That's really what the conference is about. It's removing you from wherever you are to excellence, from excellence to exceptionalism, right? When you finish with us, we want you to be gangster. And by the way, we've redefined the word gangster. Gangster no longer means, for Power Networking Conference attendees, glorification of thug life. It means Black exceptionalism. So if I roll up on you, or Andy rolls up on you, or Brother Bedford rolls up on you, and after you've done something or said something and say to you, gangster baby, gangster, that means that was Black exceptional. All right, that was Black exceptionalism. So we're going to take you from excellence to exceptionalism. We're going to take you from, if you're average, to excellence, because that's the base to be a citizen in our nation. So one adult, one student. A student is $800. An adult is $1,500. You add them together, that's $2,300. We're going to take $1,900 off of that for the first 5 people and give it to you for $399. $399, right? It costs us more than that to feed you, brothers and sisters. This is a special offer for the first 5 smartest people. Now, you can't get it going on the website. You got to come to me. So you got to email me at gfraser@frasernet.com. That's gfraser@frasernet.com. That's F-R-A-S as in Sam, E-R. You got to say in the subject line, I'm in. That's all I need to know. Then in the body of the email, put your full name and your cell number. Put your full name and your cell number. Some people don't put their cell number. I just roll by them and go to the next person because I got to be able to hit it on my phone and call you directly. Put your full name and your cell number, right? The first 5 people, gfraser@frasernet.com, right? $399. It's an incredible offer. And please do it as quickly as you can, because we fill those spots very, 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 very quickly. So that's our story tonight. I want to leave the final thoughts, as I always do, to our guest. And then, of course, we're going to hear from Brother Bedford. Brother Bedford, I don't know if you have anything burning that you want to say, if there's a burning question out there. We're a little bit over time, but that's okay. Brother Bedford, and then Andy.
Nothing burning, Dr. Fraser. Just want to say to Andy, you know, every time I listen to Andy, he just waters my spirit. I mean, I've been listening to him for years, and every time he speaks, again, the way that he constructs a story, the emotion that he attaches to it. And you said it best, Dr. Fraser. He not only taught it tonight, he was the best example of story after story after story. So I did have a question about that. Maybe you can touch on it real quick, Andy, because I'm curious as to how you select your stories, because you go back and you use people in your life. How do you determine what's a good story to build on? That's the question. And then I also want you to give your website. I know people want to come to the conference and see, and of course they're going to go see the Gold Coast, but please let people know in the interim how they can get in contact with you or follow you.
Absolutely. So I appreciate that. So that's the old question, Brother Bedford, that they ask. What comes first, the chicken or the egg? And so what they mean by that is, what comes first? Do I have a good story and then I try to go find a point, or do I have a good point then I try to go find a story? So I would say that for most people who are trying to be strategic, the way that I come up with the stories is just trying to figure out what's the point that I want to make, and then what would be a really great story to help me to make that point. So I normally have to marinate on it. So I'm thinking, hey, the point that I want to make is you got to find a compelling why. Everybody else is just going to tell you, find a why, find a reason, and that's repetitive. We get it, find a why. But how do I get it to really stick? And I go through my mental database. What's been the best depiction of what a why is? And then that's when it's like, oh, I remember that moment when Eric drove me over to the house. He was filled with emotion. He was telling me, and I could visualize that green couch. And that was a casual conversation, and it stuck with me. And I said, if it stuck with me like that, what if I could use that to drive the point of just telling the why? So that's what I say. I say, figure out the point that you want to make, go through your mental database, and you'll be surprised. Stories that you didn't even think you would use, that if you think about it now and say, there's a point that I want to make, and you go through your mental database, you'll be surprised at the stories. Now, when those stories come up, write them down, because they're like slippery fish. They'll get away from you. You better write it down, and then you got to go back and start crafting them and start putting in the work. For those of you that want to connect with me, please do so. The best way is probably going to be on social media. On IG, I'm at Show Up For Your Life. On everything else, I'm at Andy Henriquez. So if you connect with me on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Twitter, I'm at Andy Henriquez. If you're on IG, I'm at Show Up For Your Life. So that'll be the best way for us to go ahead and stay connected. And, you know, we're talking about, you know, just final words. I think that, you know, with all of you being here, like, there's no coincidence as to why you decide to show up, why you tune into a podcast like this. The reason why you show up is because you're built to grow. Like, you don't subscribe to just being at a place in your life where you're just sort of stuck and you're like, that's it, right? It's the only kind of people that listen to podcasts like this. It's the only people who are attracted to people like Dr. George Fraser, right? It's people who are ready to get to that next level. So I want you to just sort of give yourself credit. You know, for us who are overachievers, we're constantly beating ourselves up, and you might be really difficult on yourself, especially during this season. Things have pivot. Maybe you're not as productive. Things aren't working out, but give yourself a little bit of grace and understand that, you know, although I heard someone say this the other day, one of my students said that someone gave them this advice. And here's what the guy told me. He said, you write down your goals in pencil, but you write the vision in pen. And so what it means is that during this season, yes, some of the plans and so forth, they can get adjusted, right? But remember, the vision, the destination stays the same. And as long as you hold on to the vision, it's okay if you have to pivot right now. It's okay if you have to make those adjustments. It's going to be okay. Just hold on to the vision. And you better bring that vision with you at PNC 2020. So you better make sure you email Dr. George C. Fraser and be one of the first 5. Remember, if you don't make sure you put in your name and your telephone number, he's just going to scroll on to the next person. But that is a phenomenal deal for you to get the opportunity to be able to attend the PNC 2020 instead of you spending a couple of $1,000s, but for you to spend less than $400 to be in that company and have that experience. Like, that is something you want to take immediate action on. And I'm looking forward to seeing you there.
That was awesome. Wow, this was a mic drop evening. God bless you. Thank you so much, man. Brother Bedford, I don't think it gets any better than that. We've had some outstanding brothers and sisters, and you're right in there with them. I mean, God bless you. Thank you for giving us your time. Brother Bedford, as usual, you got my back, and I appreciate you. I love you for that. My closing thought for this evening is fairly simple. The same boiling water that softens potatoes hardens eggs. So it's not your circumstances, brothers and sisters. It's what you're made of. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. We'll see you on Saturday. Love you.